Gyana Timaranjasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swaparantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuttapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Bharijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Pancha Kapatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Continue reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter number 14, text 17. Sounds about right. Text 17, chapter 14, the three modes of material nature. Sattvat sanjayate jnanam rajaso lopa evacha pramada moha tamaso bhavato jnanam evacha. From the mode of goodness, real knowledge develops. From the mode of passion, grief develops. And from the mode of ignorance, foolish, madness, and illusion develop. Text 18. Urdhvam gachanti sattvasta madhye tishtanti rajasaha chaganya gunavrittista atho gachanti tamasaha. Those situated in the mode of goodness gradually go upward to the higher planets. Those in the mode of passion live on the earthly planets, and those in the mode of ignorance go down to the hellish worlds. Text 19. Nanyam gunebhya kartaram yatha drishtanupashyati gunebhyascha param veti madbhavam sodhigacchati. When you see that there is nothing beyond these modes of nature in all activities, and that the Supreme Lord is transcendental to all these modes, then you can know my spiritual nature. Text 20. Gunan etanatitya trin dehi deha samudbhavan janma mrityu jara dukkha mukto mritam ashnute. When the embodied being is able to transcend these three modes, he can become free from birth, death, old age, and their distresses, and can enjoy nectar even in this life. Text 21. Arjuno vacha karlingais trin gunani tan atito bhavati prabho kim achara katam chaitams trin gunan ativivartate. Arjuna inquired, "O my dear Lord, by what symptoms is one known who is transcendental to those modes? What is his behavior and how does he transcend the modes of nature?" Text 22 through 25. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Prakasham cha pravritthim cha moham eva cha pandava madveshti sampravrittani nanarittani kankshati udasinavad asino gunayo na vichalyate gunavartante tyevam yovatishtati nengate samadukha sukha swastha samaloshtashmakanshanaha tulya priya priyo dhiras tulya nindatma samstrutihi manapamanayos tulyas tulyo michari pakshayaho sarvarampa parityagi gunathita sa uchyate. The Blessed Lord said, "He who does not hate illumination, attachment, and delusion when they are present, nor longs for them when they disappear, who is seated like one unconcerned, being situated beyond these material reactions of the modes of nature, who remains firm, knowing that the modes alone are active, who regards alike pleasure and pain, and looks on a clod, a stone, and a piece of gold with an equal eye, who is wise and holds praise and blame to be the same, who is unchanged in honor and dishonor, who treats friends and foe alike, who has abandoned all fruit of undertakings. Such a man is said to have transcended the modes of nature." That's nice. Text 26. Mam chayo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityaitan brahmabhuyaya kalpate. One who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature, and thus comes to the level of Brahman. And the last text of the chapter, text 27. Brahmano hi pratisthaham amritasya vyayasya cha shashvatasya cha dharmasya sukhasya ikantikasya cha. And I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness, and which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal. So we'll go back to text 17. Read the translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. From the mode of goodness, real knowledge develops. From the mode of passion, grief develops. And from the mode of ignorance, foolishness, madness, and illusion develop. Purport. Since the present civilization is not very congenial to the living entities, Krishna consciousness is recommended. Through Krishna consciousness, society will develop the modes of goodness. When the mode of goodness is developed, people will see things as they are. In the mode of ignorance, people are just like animals and cannot see things clearly. In the mode of ignorance, for example, they do not see that by killing one animal, they are taking a chance of being killed by the same animal in the next life, because people have no education and actual knowledge. They become irresponsible. To stop this irresponsibility, education for developing the mode of goodness of the people in general must be there. When they are actually educated in the mode of goodness, they will become sober and full knowledge of things as they are. Then people will be happy and prosperous. Even if the majority of the people aren't happy and prosperous, if a certain percentage of the population develops Krishna consciousness and becomes situated in the mode of goodness, then there is the possibility for peace and prosperity all over the world. Otherwise, if the world is devoted to the modes of passion and ignorance, there can be no peace or prosperity. In the mode of passion, people become greedy, and their hankering for sense enjoyment has no limit. One can see that even if one has enough money and adequate arrangement for sense gratification, there is neither happiness nor peace of mind. That is not possible because one is situated in the mode of passion. If one wants happiness at all, his money will not help him. He has to elevate himself to the mode of goodness by practicing Krishna consciousness. One engaged in the mode of passion is not only mentally unhappy, but his profession and occupation are also very troublesome. He has to devise so many plans and schemes to acquire enough money to maintain his status quo. This is all miserable. In the mode of ignorance, people become mad, being distressed by their circumstances. They take shelter of intoxication, and thus they sink further into ignorance. Their future in life is very dark. Maharaj, if you'd like to... So, this is a very important chapter of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, Krishna describing the three modes of material nature. Last week, I was speaking, Friday, where we started this chapter. And when one has this knowledge, it's very clear to see what's going on in the world around us. Therefore, we can make intelligent discrimination of how we interact with the world. You know, when you're aloof from this knowledge, then you just see things and it's always in flux. But with this knowledge, you can see, oh, this environment's very passionate, this person's very passionate, this person's very ignorant, so on. So then you can gauge the world and how to interact with it. And Krishna is revealing this knowledge, and it's not just for us to see externally, it's also for us to see within ourselves. We may have bits of goodness, bits of passion, bits of ignorance, and they're always coming more and more or less at different times. They're fighting for supremacy. And I remember from last time we were reading, Krishna quite a few times describes the mode of ignorance as foolishness or madness. So in the purport, Prabhupada made it very clear that there's no happiness, there's no hope in a society that's pervaded by these lower modes of material nature. And there's a great picture in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the first canto at least, and it shows Kali Yuga. It shows people doing all sorts of atrocious activities, and like, you'll have to see the picture. I won't go into details, but there's a lot of horrible things going on. And then there's a shining light of the Srimad Bhagavatam, giving hope and knowledge for those to escape this terrible situation. So when one takes to hearing that Krishna Katha, one can very easily purify their consciousness, and as Prabhupada said here, through Krishna consciousness, society will develop the mode of goodness. When the mode of goodness is developed, people will see things as they are. So to see things as they are can be difficult at first because we're so ignorant. You have to face the truth. And when confronted with that truth, it might make us feel uncomfortable. It might make us feel uncomfortable to a certain degree because when confronted with the absolute truth, there's only one thing to do, is to surrender to that absolute truth, because it's absolutely true. Everything is relative to that truth. I'm just a product of that, which is ultimately coming from Krishna. And to surrender from our Western background is a very scary word. Surrender. I don't want to surrender. I want to fight. I want to be free. But we could see the devotees who actually become very submissive to the will of Krishna through the media of the spiritual master, through the scriptures. They become very enlivened, very happy. And what was this text that we read? It said, I think it was text... No, text 20. It says, even nectar can be enjoyed in this life. So some may have the doubt, I don't want to give up my life to Krishna, to devotional service. What about my enjoyment? I don't even know if my next life even exists. But Krishna is saying that nectar can be enjoyed in this life. So with proper knowledge, we can discriminate and see the things that we want to do in our life for enjoyment, for fun, for recreation. They actually bring a lot of stress and anxiety and pains. What was it? Prabhupada was talking in this purport that he says one engaged in the mode of passion is not only mentally unhappy, but his profession and occupation are also very troublesome. He has to devise so many plans and schemes to acquire enough money to maintain his status quo. This is all miserable. So not only are we mentally unhappy and disturbed, but we have to do austerities. There's no escaping austerities. We have to understand this principle. And no matter where we go, we're going to face inconveniences, difficulties, struggles. But if we do it for Krishna, willingly going through struggles and austerities for the pleasure of Krishna, Krishna becomes pleased by our endeavor. And when Krishna is pleased with our endeavor, He'll give us the mercy that we can come to Him and enjoy this nectar in this life. But when we're doing austerities for our own pleasure in the material pursuits of life, what's there? It's only short-lived at best. And it creates this taste in our mouth, and we want more, and we're always chasing, we're always hankering and lamenting. And in this text 22 through 25, where Krishna gives these transcendental qualities of somebody who's beyond the modes of material nature, I saw the words Samaduka Sukha Swastha. What's this? It says, one who's equal in happiness and distress. But what I was thinking of is that, one neither hankers nor laments when one's on that spiritual platform. So one's just satisfied rendering their service to the Supreme Lord and accepting everything that comes as His mercy. So everything is a stepping stone for further advancement in spiritual life. So there's nothing negative or bad that happens, but we may not be on that platform, so we have to continue to persevere by cultivating bhakti yoga through sadhana bhakti. Okay, I'll read the next text. If anybody wants to ask any questions or comments or anything, that's more than welcome. Okay. Text 18. Those situated in the mode of goodness gradually go upward to the higher planets. Those in the mode of passion live on the earthly planets, and those in the mode of ignorance go down to the hellish worlds. Purport. In this verse, the results of actions in the three modes of nature are more explicitly set forth. There is an upper planetary system consisting of the heavenly planets, where everyone is highly elevated. According to the degree of development of the mode of goodness, the living entity can be transferred to various planets in this system. The highest planet is Satyaloka, or Brahmaloka, where the prime person of this universe, Lord Brahma, resides. We have seen already that we can hardly calculate the wondrous condition of life in Brahmaloka. But the highest condition of life, the mode of goodness, can bring us to this. The mode of passion is mixed. It is in the middle between the modes of goodness and ignorance. A person is not always pure, but even if he should be purely in the mode of passion, he will simply remain on this earth as a king or a rich man. But because there are mixtures, one can also go down. People on this earth in the modes of passion or ignorance cannot forcibly approach the higher planets by machine. In the mode of passion, there is also the chance of becoming mad in the next life. The lowest quality, the mode of ignorance, is described here as abominable. The result of developing ignorance is very, very risky. It is the lowest quality in material nature. Beneath the human level there are 8 million species of life, birds, beasts, reptiles, trees, etc. And according to the development of the mode of ignorance, people are brought down to these abominable conditions. The word tamasaha is very significant here. Tamasaha indicates those who stay continually in the mode of ignorance without rising to a higher mode. Their future is very dark. There is opportunity for men in the modes of ignorance and passion to be elevated to the mode of goodness, and that system is called Krishna consciousness. But one who does not take advantage of this opportunity certainly will continue in the lower modes. So I was thinking how in the Sri Upanishad it's described of the killer of the soul, and essentially one who doesn't take advantage of this opportunity to realize our true spiritual nature in relation to God and stays perpetually in this darkness is considered the killer of the soul, one who's just wasting their life, because in the mode of ignorance, as Prabhupada highlighted here, it's very putrid. There's nothing, there's no happiness, there's no enjoyment, there's no understanding of life. It's just suffering and pain and anxiety and fear constantly. And the sad part is that we have much of this tamasa in our consciousness ourselves, this ignorance. To weed out this ignorance is very difficult for our own self to do, and it often takes association of other sadhus who are free from this ignorance. And I may be ignorant about certain spheres of life, and another devotee may be more aware of those spheres but be more ignorant in other spheres. So there's three kinds of association: associating with senior devotees or senior persons in general, association with equals, people who are on an equal level, and association with juniors or people who are on a lesser level. And of the three, one is most purifying. Does anybody know which one is most purifying? Equals, yes. Because if I'm associating with a senior, it's very easy to be like, take the humble role and put this person on the pedestal, and that's the role. It's easy to take. Or if somebody's brand new, they walk in the door, I tell them everything I know and I try to help them, and it's very clear that I have more to give. Not in a puffed up way, but that's just the nature of things. But to associate with equals is very, very difficult, because we're on an equal level, equal platform, and between equals there's a tendency for competitive nature, to be competitive, that I don't want to listen to this person for whatever reason, and suddenly I think I'm better than this person. But because they do certain activities that we see, and it challenges our whole self, because they may be better in certain activities. And it makes us look much, much deeper, because there's so much pride getting in the way of our life. And like I said, to reiterate, with seniors, it's easy to put this pride aside. But with equals, these tendencies usually come up more. So in the association with equals, there's intense purification, and this is why we're fortunate to have such devotee association of like-minded persons who are practicing to cultivate Krishna consciousness. And the more that we could foster relationships based around taking shelter of one another, the more we can prosper. Because like I said, I may be stronger in a particular field, but I have weaknesses. Another devotee may be weak at what I'm strong at, and he may be strong at what I'm weak at. So to take shelter of one another and ultimately take shelter of the scriptures and the acharyas, but just always cultivating this mood of helping one another and building together, rather than trying to, I'll serve the seniors and I'll assist the juniors, but amongst the equals I'm going to be competitive and isolated. So it makes life much easier. You had something you want to say?
My question was just, how can we tell who is, I think it was how can we tell who is a junior, who is a senior, and who is an equal?
Well, we don't necessarily need to go scrutinizingly looking, but it should be quite apparent. In one sense, we should treat everybody like a senior. But from a practical sense, there's age, how long one's been living in this body. There's age in terms of when one came to the movement, approached Krishna consciousness. But most importantly, knowledge, as exemplified by Shukadeva Goswami in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Shukadeva Goswami was in the body of a 16-year-old boy, 15-year-old boy wandering around naked. And all these sages unanimously agreed that he should present to Maharaj Parikshit what he should do on his last days, in his body. So, if I see somebody younger than me, and they have more knowledge than me, and I'm prideful and envious, I won't want to put myself in a lower position to hear his experience, to hear his realizations. Because I'll think, man, he doesn't deserve this knowledge. Why does he get it? I should have it. I've been around longer. I've done more. So there's always something to learn from everybody, actually, but these three are good indications to go by. But above that, we have certain authorities that we have in our life, Diksha Guru, Shiksha Gurus, authorities within the temple that are working with us, that know us on a personal level, mentors. So, these are very good to have, to have a foundation. So we don't have to go guessing and, just take shelter of that, and it's much easier. Diksha Guru, Shiksha Guru, mentors, temple authority, temple president. Work with them, reveal our mind, and always strive to be better. Something else? Yeah. What I'm saying is, that's sufficient, or do you want more? So in this mode of ignorance, one thing I was going to say is that, Lord, I really like this analogy. It's just how I've realized it. Lord Chaitanya in the Shikshastakam, he talks about the cleansing of this mirror of the heart, where it's like a dusty mirror, and with a dusty mirror, we all know you can't see the reflection until you wipe the dust off. So, if our consciousness is covered by this dust, it takes associating with somebody who's free from this dust, and that light that's ultimately coming from Krishna can shine down on their mirror and radiate more light, and that light can shine on all the cracks and crevices that we're hiding in our life, that we didn't even know that were there. So by associating with sadhus, senior devotees who are fixed up on a spiritual platform, who imbibe these qualities which Krishna describes, that we just read, text 22 to 25, then they can help us eradicate all this tamagun within our own self. Okay, anybody wants to say anything else? Yes.
Yeah, it's been there's been a lot of really purifying moments when your friends tell you, you have problems. So it's like in that moment itself, it's poison, but actually it's so good for us to hear from people who are with us on the same level. We can hear from Prabhupada. That's why usually we say, okay, let Prabhupada, deal the heavy blows, in his purports and everything. And in general that works, but when somebody who's also studying Prabhupada's books tells you, hey man, this is just not going well, then there's a tendency to become defensive. So I've really appreciated friendship of the devotees who can give that. At the same time, it doesn't sit well with, it's like it doesn't work if we go over our adhikar and then we tell somebody that we think is our friend who's actually our senior, hey, you're doing this wrong. It's just like, that was really awkward and weird. So we experience that side too sometimes. And that's also a type of a purification, is like kind of realizing, oh, I'm acting like this person is my peer, but in so many ways they're my senior. Even though sometimes the senior may let us in to a certain area of service as a peer. There's also a general hierarchy too. And then one has to very quickly realize only within this sphere of service, when the senior asks me to be in that bubble, can I actually be like a peer and give my opinion as an equal. But actually, it's just a momentary glimpse into that for the sake of doing something for Krishna. So then if we try to carry that outside of that moment of service, then we feel that weird thing like, oh, Krishna wasn't very pleased with the way I spoke to that senior devotee. So those are just some reflections how in my own life I've gotten a lot out of having that friendly association, people who can tell me frankly about things I need to work on, and then also just the danger of going above our adhikar and trying to give our opinion about other devotees who actually are our seniors. So thank you for letting me share.
Yeah, that's very good points. Anything else by anybody? Thoughts, questions, doubts? You sure?
There's a section there in the purport where Prabhupada said that there is a system by which the general society can be elevated to the mode of goodness, and that's called Krishna consciousness. Then he says, when they're in the mode of goodness by Krishna consciousness, they can see things as they are. And then he says, therefore, there should be a general program of education for developing the mode of goodness within the society. Now, my question is, is there a benefit to preaching mode of goodness without Krishna consciousness? Okay, we know it's say I have duties in my life, my dharma or something, I'm a student, and actually I'm just like waiting to the last moment to study my books, skipping all the classes, and then just like don't even go to the class and do the final, and then just like lose the money, no credit, bad GPA. I'd say, okay, that's ignorance. So mode of goodness means, okay, study early, get the syllabus, work ahead, get your friends, like that, maybe, or mode of passion, right? So my idea is like, okay, is there some benefit to just talking about those mundane ways to elevate to mode of goodness? Or is it strictly required, or is it strictly prescribed here to just preach Krishna consciousness for developing the mode of goodness?
Krishna says only 1 out of thousands will approach truth. Only 1 out of them will actually come to know him in full. Prabhupada said, don't be surprised when everybody doesn't come to the temple. Only a few people will actually come. Krishna says, think of me, worship me, give your love to me. If you can't do that, follow the rules and regulations of bhakti. If you can't do that, try to work for me. If you can't do that, try to work giving up the fruits of your work. In that purport, Prabhupada describes how giving charity to good causes is beneficial because one's giving up the fruits of their work to make advancement. So what I'm driving at is that if there were to be a class of brahmanas installed in society, they would disperse spiritual knowledge and engage people according to their nature, so that they can advance towards the right path. Not everybody is going to take up the path of being a full-time devotee of the Lord. So, in that sense, there needs to be a foundation of Krishna consciousness, of this Brahminical culture. Otherwise, the mode of goodness is useless, and it's just, Prabhupada was talking about, one goes up to this heavenly planets, but then one can also come back down. So, without that, there's no vision. Without the head, there's no eyes. Without the head, there's no intelligence. So, in one sense, it's useless, but in one sense, if done in the proper system, as prescribed as a whole, as the Varnashram given by Krishna, then it can be useful. And generally, when one is more in a mode of goodness state, one can be open to higher principles of life. But like you pointed out, you're talking about somebody going to class, and I know this is just one example, but we have to see what's the driving force of why we do what we do. If I'm studying to get a degree so I can get money, so I can enjoy, it's largely driven by passion. But just by cultivating sattva gun, knowledge is a result. That's what Krishna said in text 17, from the mode of goodness, real knowledge develops. So, the issue is that the mode of goodness is always tinged with passion and ignorance, because these modes of material nature in the material world are always fighting for supremacy. Whereas this Shuddha-sattva, this pure mode of goodness, it's the spiritual platform, essentially. So, yes and no, it depends how you approach it, how you go about it. As far as what, on a smaller scale, say ourselves preaching, What's our focus? Our focus is to distribute books, to get people to chant the holy names, to take to devotional service. But if they can't take devotional service, you try to help them in whichever way you can. So eating meat is bad. Like Krishna Shravana Prabhu mentioned earlier, as he often does, one who eats meat, they can't understand God. They can't understand spirituality because there's no compassion. So, to try to push somebody on the right path, but I'm not going to sit there and hold somebody's hand to help them become a vegetarian. I might sit there and spend hours talking to somebody if they'll start chanting Hare Krishna, reading Prabhupada's books, doing devotional service, and then becoming a vegetarian will be a byproduct. But if somebody's not receptive, you can push them in that direction, but why waste so much time? It's not really going to help on the absolute plane. So our focus should be spreading Krishna consciousness clearly as is given by the acharyas, but at the same time being compassionate for all living entities and trying to help them on their progressive journey back to Godhead, which Krishna describes, as stages of progression. It's not all or nothing, full surrender or nothing. So I hope that's helpful at all. Okay, we'll read text 19. When you see that there is nothing beyond these modes of nature in all activities, and that the Supreme Lord is transcendental to all these modes, then you can know my spiritual nature. Would you like to read the purport, Bhakta Aiden Prabhu? It's on page 683.
One can transcend all the activities of the modes of material nature simply by understanding them properly, by learning from the proper souls. The real spiritual master is Krishna, and he is imparting this spiritual knowledge to Arjuna. Similarly, it is from those who are fully in Krishna consciousness that one has to learn the science of activities in terms of the modes of nature. Otherwise, one's life will be misdirected. By the instruction of a bona fide spiritual master, a living entity can know of his spiritual position, his material body, his senses, how he is entrapped, and how he is under the spell of the material modes of nature. He is helpless, being in the grip of these modes, but when he can see his real position, then he can attain to the transcendental platform, having the scope for spiritual life. Actually, the living entity is not the performer of different activities. He is forced to act because he is situated in a particular type of body, conducted by some particular mode of material nature. Unless one has the help of spiritual authority, he cannot understand in what position he is actually situated. With the association of a bona fide spiritual master, he can see his real position, and by such an understanding, he can become fixed in full Krishna consciousness. A man in Krishna consciousness is not controlled by the spell of the material modes of nature. It has already been stated in the 7th chapter that one who has surrendered to Krishna is relieved from the activities of material nature. Therefore, for one who is able to see things as they are, the influence of material nature gradually ceases.
Does anybody know this text in the 7th chapter that Krishna is talking about? Prabhupada's talking about? Chapter 7, text 14. Daivihi shagunamai mamamaya dhratyaya mamivaye prapadyante mayami tam tarantite. This divine energy of mind, consisting of the 3 modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. Krishna describes repeatedly at different times that Arjuna should give up these modes of material nature and transcend them. Give up pursuing the Vedas, which mainly deal with the modes of the material nature. He describes how by one performing devotional service, one will not be bereft of the knowledge of the Vedas, a performance of charity. So, the whole Bhagavad Gita even though Krishna talks about jnana and dhyana and different forms of yoga, the whole thing is permeated with devotional service, and anyone with clear knowledge can see that. But as Prabhupada so beautifully points out, it takes a proper spiritual authority. He says unless one has the help of a spiritual authority, he cannot understand in what position he is actually situated. So before we read the Bhagavad Gita, we recite these prayers. Om Jnana Timarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. And I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and only by the mercy of the spiritual master, he opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. So this is something that we should always remember and always take shelter of, because whatever we have was given to us. Any material thing was given to us. It's not ours. It's only temporary. I don't know if anybody ever went on a vacation with their family and you rent a car, you drive to the beach or wherever. But when you're done with the rental car, you take it back. It's not your car. Similarly, this body is just a rental. It's not ours. It's made up of the material energy, the different elements, and we're occupying it just like occupying a car. And sooner or later, we will leave this vessel and it will return to the base elements that it came from. And anything else that we have in this material world is just temporary. Relationships, beauty, strength, fame. It's funny, the Olympics are going on, and there's so many people working so hard their whole life to compete in these games, and somebody wins a medal, and I imagine they etch their name in some stone or some list somewhere. But ultimately, 50 years from now, who will care? 100 years from now, who will care? 1,000 years from now? It's a waste of time to talk about. When we're talking of things in relation to Lord Krishna, everything becomes eternally valuable. Because anything that's not connected to Krishna directly or indirectly is just Maya, it's illusion. But anything that's connected to Krishna, it's not illusion, it's real. It's potent, because Krishna is the supreme potent. So, as devotees, we should learn to see, to connect everything we feel and experience to Krishna. In this way, we'll always be connected to Krishna and never be lost from Krishna. But when we see the world separate from Krishna in any shape or form, this is the source of our suffering. So there's one more minute. If anybody has any last comment or question or reflection. Yes.
I've been thinking about this a lot, how you said this connection to Krishna. So we're obviously all suffering in this material world, except for those who are beyond the modes of nature. But it's all impetus to surrender more, which is the only solution to all problems. So, pretty much that's the whole purpose of the material world, is to teach us just to turn more towards Krishna and beg Him more seriously for pure devotional service, not just for the mitigation of our distress, but for pure devotional service. It's just a reflection.
Yeah, we may approach Krishna in any shape or form, and that's okay, but ultimately, purification should follow, and the only desire should be for devotional service, and this is actually Krishna's mercy upon us. I remember when I first came here, there was a devotee, he's from India, and I asked him how he came to Krishna consciousness, and he told me how he started associating with the devotees, where he was from in India, and his grandma told him, don't hang out with the devotees, don't worship Krishna. Lord Hare, he'll take everything away from you. So I thought that was really funny how like his grandma knew of Krishna and knew that, you know, people who worship Krishna, Krishna takes away everything from them. So Krishna is taking away, what's he taking away from us? In reality, he's taking away all the bad things. Simply put, all the things we're afraid to lose, that we've lost or given up already, or that we hold on to still, it's only detrimental for us, it's only bad, it's all bad. But Krishna is taking it away, this is his mercy. But in the case of Sudama Brahmana, he was actually attached to having nothing and being poor, so Krishna gave him so much luxury and wealth. So Krishna works in mysterious ways to purify us from our anarthas in this material world. Okay, thank you everybody for patiently hearing. Shri Gauranatai ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Vansha kapaturubhyas chakripas and the Vachapatitanam Pavanabhi Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.